Welcome to Tuesday, the 12th day of December, 2023. Your day weather podcast brought to you by Hot Springs County Travel and Tourism, reminding you that as temperatures get colder and snow falls at Thermopolis, you can always find yourself in hot water. The storm system that brought some snow and currently some areas of fog to parts of southern Wyoming and northern Colorado overnight and yesterday evening in parts of western Nebraska, that's going to slide south, drawing in some cooler air. As that storm slides south and intensifies, we're going to have a significant rain and snow event for parts of Colorado, especially New Mexico and West Texas, and parts of Kansas and Oklahoma. That system, as we showed you yesterday, is on schedule. It's going to end up being a pretty significant event for those areas. We're going to have a quiet stretch elsewhere across the central and northern Rockies, the northern plains, the far west. The way the pattern is right now, storms are either going to go up into Canada or they're going to stay across the southern tier of the U.S. So the middle, in between those two jet stream areas, there really won't be much going on for a bit. Now, changing conditions out in the Pacific Ocean are going to lead the changes down the road. It's going to take a while. There's going to be a stretch here where there really won't be much for many of you, but that will change as we get to late next week, and we'll show you why. Nice shot there from Catherine in the Wheatland area up on the Laramie Range. Those winter-looking clouds out there. And here's another cat that I think cats like all of this going on, that the drawing that I take. But thanks, Steve, for sending in Evie the cat, checking out yesterday's podcast. Now, as we look at the satellite imagery this morning, here is the area of low pressure that is sinking southeastward into Utah. It's going to continue to head down right into this area here. So we have the main northern branch of the jet stream doing this. And then you can see the clouds here associated with higher level winds going across this part of the Pacific. So we have two jet streams, the polar jet up here and the southern branch of the jet stream, which, as we told you yesterday, is the start of an El Nino pattern beginning to form. So there you can see the low as of noon today over northeastern areas of Nevada and western Utah, heading southeastward. So the northern branch of the jet stream is going to go this way. This is going to get cut off. There it is. This is by tomorrow evening around 5 p.m. Mountain Time. It sinks down into Arizona and western New Mexico and starts to draw up moisture out of Mexico, the Gulf of Mexico, and the Plain States, and converges that moisture into eastern New Mexico, southern Colorado, and West Texas. So you can see how it's broken off. So when it breaks off, they're going to move slowly and kind of meander. They're going to move west to east, but at a much slower pace. By Friday morning, that low is now in the panhandle of Texas. It's trying to get reconnected, but for the most part, it stays detached. We're going to have a big low out here stall off the west coast. So that's going to bring mild Pacific air into the west. While it stays cool and wet down here, mild air begins to build into the Great Basin, and temperatures are going to go back up to above average conditions. And we look out in the Pacific. Here's El Nino. These are the sea surface temperature anomalies as of this weekend. You can see the robust El Nino right there with those warmer than average sea surface temperatures. We're also still looking at the North Pacific. It's not as warm as it's been, but it's still warmer than the 30-year average up there. When we take a look at the MEI, and this is something we've showed you at times, we have mentioned that this is not going to be a super El Nino, and it won't be. But it has actually gone above the MEI, which is a measure of how strong an El Nino is, or even if it exists. Now that it's above zero, we're in what we would call weak El Nino status right here. If you compare it to the really strong El Ninos historically in the last few decades, you can still see it's falling well short. But we're finally at the point where the El Nino is showing up better in the data. And we're starting to see that response going on. But if we look at the last 3 months of the change in sea surface temperatures, just off the coast of South America here, the sea surface temperatures have actually gotten colder. So we're still looking at a robust El Nino, but it's going to fall well short of that super El Nino status. And it's likely over the next, let's say, 8 weeks, reaching its peak strength. As it reaches its peak strength, we're going to have El Nino impacts. And here you go. Here's one of them right here. Over the course of the next 4 days, this takes us through Friday evening, you're going to see widespread areas of rain develop across parts of Texas, central and eastern New Mexico, south and along the I-70 corridor of Colorado into Kansas there. And even the far northwest edge of the storm may get far northern Colorado, southeastern Wyoming, and southwest Nebraska with a little bit of light moisture, mainly probably just clouds and a few showers. But boy, down here, there's just going to be a really good convergence of moisture coming in. This area really, really needs the rain, and they're going to get some. And on the back, colder side, the northern and western side of this precipitation shield, it's going to be cold enough for snow. Even deep into the Texas Panhandle, parts of southern Colorado, Colorado Springs, to Pueblo, to Trinidad, down to Lamar and La Junta, then into the southwest, far southwest mountains of Colorado, and look at New Mexico. Let's focus in on New Mexico, and you can see if you're traveling or planning on traveling later this week, really tomorrow night, late tomorrow into Thursday and Friday, over Raton Pass along I-25 on the way through Santa Fe, Las Vegas, and on the way to Albuquerque, and then along Interstate 40 here, you're going to run into some winter storm conditions across New Mexico and the Texas and Oklahoma panhandles, across southern Colorado there. So this is great news. They really need the moisture. The bad news is if you've got to travel through it, it's not going to be any fun. Now let's go out a little bit further. This is by this upcoming weekend. This upper level low gets cut off from the main jet stream and stalls out. So the southwest flow will pump mild air in. So the western United States, after this low in the south moves out, and this low is going to come out of Canada but head towards the Great Lakes in a clipper situation, it's going to be pretty mild. There's just really not going to be a lot going on late this week, over the weekend, into early next week, because this gets detached and stalls out for a bit. What happens after that, though, is a big question mark, because what eventually will happen is that even though this gets cut off, this polar jet, as we'll show you here in a minute, is going to get stronger and stronger and wanting to push systems along. So the question mark in our forecast, once we get beyond this weekend, is will these lows stay stalled out just off the coast, or will they push inland into the Rockies? And the timing is such, it's going to be maybe late next week or the weekend just before Christmas. So it's something we've got to watch closely because it could have really big travel impacts depending on what happens. So stay tuned. And this is what we talked about the Pacific. Now this is a little bit hard to see, but here's Alaska. Here's Washington and Oregon for points of reference. Here's Japan. So this is basically looking across the North Pacific. This is looking at 300 millibars or 30,000 feet jet stream level. This is by next Wednesday. Okay, so this is towards the middle of next week. There's that stalled out low off the west coast. Here is that southerly jet stream right here, that extra branch, El Nino driven branch north of Hawaii into Mexico and Southern California. Here's the polar jet. It's in three really strong segments right here. So there's a lot of jet energy that is going to likely want to take this low and kick it inland or entrain it up into the main flow. We'll have to see. But when we see this much going on in the Pacific, this is a harbinger of, this is a sign of changes to come. Those changes are likely going to happen just before Christmas time and between Christmas and New Year's in the western United States. Between now and then, not a lot going on. Now, with that precipitation that's going to be falling in New Mexico, Colorado, Texas, and Oklahoma, this is a good reminder that if you want to be a weather observer to help out in drought and flood and all of those things, CocoRa's is a great way to become an observer. Get a rain gauge. Rain gauges are also provided, and you can be able to be an observer. And this is not just in the Rockies, but for you folks in Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas, we need observers down there as well. And I really recommend this new rain gauge, the Tropo. This has come out over the past year. This is a great way to accurately measure rain and snow. And they've really reduced the price just in time for the holiday season. This is my new favorite rain gauge. Check them out at measurerain.com. Have yourself a great Tuesday. We'll see you tomorrow.